All right, hello, welcome back to the podcast. Once again, everybody, we're updating or looking over to the Euphrates and Tigris river situations over in the Middle East again, as I spoke about these a little while back in a different video. And since then, has the situation gotten better? Absolutely not. It's gotten worse. The rivers, the Euphrates in particular, especially, are disastrously low, and the effects of that are actually starting to stack. Just starting off with mass die-offs of fish that are normally in the rivers that a lot of, obviously, the people who live in the region and along the rivers depend on, both for food and for livelihood, for earning their income. The rivers are no longer remaining deep enough to actually sustain the fish populations, at least in any, decent, manageable number. And that's due to the combined effect of less water volume, less room for the fish populations, and also the volumetric effect that has on the temperature of the water. As back when the rivers were their normal size, the heat, particularly during the summer, obviously, would be, nicely dissipated throughout them. However, the smaller the river gets, the less, total volume there is, the more quickly and more in temperature-wise overall the water heats up, and can start to go outside of the water temperature zones that the fish and other indigenous species in the river thrive in. The water temperature starts to exit those ranges as there's less and less of it, because it heats up more easily, more quickly, because there's less water to heat up overall. Also, along many portions of the rivers where the drying effects have been the worst, at quite a few places, particularly throughout Iraq. In the worst affected parts, it is actually starting to cause water migration. Not the water migrating, people migrating. People moving from different parts of the countries to others, where more water is still readily available. Sometimes not just going by themselves, but also bringing their herd animals with them, which has started to lead to actual fighting, and not fighting as in arguing, but fighting as in violent fighting, and even livestock and farm raiding, since as the people are moving from the worse off areas to the less worse off areas, it turns out the less worse off areas we're only really staying that way with the current local population, the local residents. Once more and more people, and particularly more and more herd or grazing animals, started getting brought in, the less worse off areas have now gone beyond their limits. And so in quite a number of places, that's been leading to situations of either your herd gets to drink or mine does. And in quite a number of situations, that has not been getting decided peacefully. Also, while the river levels remain catastrophically low, that is going to lead to some permanent effects that will linger on even if the rivers returned to their normal levels. Those permanent effects being the loss of arable land, which is kind of really valuable in the middle of a desert, as the rivers being so dangerously low is leading to both rapid desertification and salination, or saltwater intrusion, into the soils. As with the river level so low, way less agricultural land can actually be irrigated, and in the absence of irrigation for quite a long time, that has caused the soil to dry up. And as soil begins to dry up, it cracks and gets blown away by the desert winds, which is not good, because, once it blows away, that's kind of it. You're left no longer with arable land in the middle of a desert, you're just left with more desert in the middle of a desert. So I was only able to get numbers specifically for Iraq, and in Iraq it's almost up to 40%, just under it at 39%. Of the agricultural land is now under desertification vulnerability, as the process is not instantaneous. Obviously, it's ongoing and does take time to occur. That's putting Iraq at risk of losing just under 40% of its farmland. And surprisingly, more is actually at risk from saltwater intrusion, as basically, if you look at an elevation map or a topographic map of the Middle East, a lot of it is a very low-lying bowl, a big giant semi-enclosed basin, sort of. That's actually how so much oil was able to form there and why it did. However, that also presents them with a problem, as the Tigris and Euphrates rivers are not, as they go through Iraq, they're not flowing down some massive slope of elevation. It is a downgrading elevation, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't be flowing. However, it's not by a huge degree, and especially once you get really close to the Persian Gulf, the rivers are basically level with the Persian Gulf. And to an extent, the only thing really keeping the salt water from the Gulf from swelling inland during tidal fluxes was the formerly large flows of the river. The force of the river flow kept that from happening to a certain degree. However, with the rivers so abysmally low, the salt water of the Persian Gulf has been welling inland and seeping through the farmland soils, gradually increasing their level of salinity. And in case anyone is not familiar with agriculture, soil filled with salt water, or just salted soil in general, equals not good. Typically it equals famine eventually, with rising salinity levels now affecting over half of Iraq's farmland, getting up to 54%. So Iraq in particular is getting sandwiched, getting crushed between two farmland destroying effects. May we all pray for their safety, but that is it for now. So thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, usual stuff. Links to support me are down below if anybody wants to. Don't do it if you can't do it, obviously. But may God protect and bless all of you, and especially grant rain to those who need it most. And I will see you all around next time.